The next one I'm going to do is a Turk's Tarantula. I've already prepped my hook with some thread, and when you start this one, you want to start about a third down from the eye, quarter to a third. You don't want any necessarily threading here because we're going to spin deer hair on there. Now the tail itself calls for pheasant tippet from the neck of the bird, but I don't have any here tonight, so I'm going to substitute crystal flash. And I have my little hank that I made. And I'm just going to put some of that on the back. Maybe 2 or 3 pin traps to get it going. That's going to work pretty well. And I'll just secure this down a little bit down the hook. You don't have to go very far with it. Okay, and bring it back. I'm going to take off all this extra. I don't need this right now. And I'm just going to use some dubbing. In this case, I'm going to use some Cabela's Superfine dry fly dubbing in brown. And I want the body a little bit thick, but just like the hopper we did, we don't want it too thick, we want it to be fairly smooth. So I'm just going to take my dubbing and I'm going to put it on, not worrying about it being real thin, and bring it to the tie-in point. And I'm just going to make my body. And if it kind of gets fluffy on you, you can adjust it as you go along, wrapping over the previous. This one, about half over the previous ones. Okay, then I want to end up with my dubbing about a third or so from the hook shank. From the hook eye, I'm sorry. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put on some more crystal flash. You can use a different color, I'm just going to use the same. As kind of an underwing. I'm going to put it back about where the tail is roughly. I'm going to tie that on. I want to keep the tie-in point right up against the body itself. I don't want to drift towards the eye if I can help it. Again, I want that space in the front. Okay, so it's spread out fairly well. Clean up my eye just a little bit. Okay, now the standard for the wing portion of it is kip tail, but tonight I'm going to use Antron yarn, and I just took one section off of the cardboard. I'll get rid of that curly stuff at the end that doesn't want to cooperate a lot of times. And what I'm going to do is just put this on about the length of the crystal flash. Again, right by the body, 2 or 3 wraps around. If you don't think that's enough, you can bring the other section back right alongside of it and tie that down. Okay, now one's longer than the other, so I'll just take a second right now and clip that off. And kind of work with that so it's going to tie in a little bit together. Something like that. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start working with some deer hair. And the first section that we put on is going to be stacked. And I don't want a huge amount. I would call it a moderate amount. Something about like this. Okay? And I'm going to stack it, so I want to get rid of all that fluffy stuff in there. All the hair out, the loose pieces or short pieces. And once I'm satisfied, I'm going to stack it tip first. And we could have put a little more in, but this will work okay. And what I like to do is bring it up onto the wing a little bit, because it has a tendency as you tie it to bring it down. So I bring it up on the wing a little bit. Same tie-in point. I'm going to pinch wrap a couple times around, holding on to the hair on each side of the hook, because what I want is just that little fluffy wingy look right there. Now this part I'm going to use, but it's way too long. I don't need all this, so I'm just going to trim some of that off so it's a little easier to work with. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is bring the butt end of that up, and I'll make a couple more wraps around there to hold that up. Okay, so far tail's looking good. We've got our flash in at the top, our wing in, and our deer hair. Now the next thing I'm going to do is get another hunk of deer hair, about the size we used for the wing there, I suppose, kind of a moderate size amount. I'm not going to stack this, but I want to get that hair up because we're going to spin this, and that'll help with the spinning. And then to get this prepared, I have my little hank in between my fingers, and I'm just going to square off the bottom of it and go underneath and take those tips off. I don't want them in the way. They're going to be cut off anyway. So what I have is a nice little bundle. Then I'm going to pull everything back, and I'm going to put that bundle about half in front and half in back of my tie-in point. Give myself a little bit of thread, go around lightly, go around a second time. As I'm coming up the second time, let loose, and that hair should spin. And now I've got it going all the way around. So the next thing I want to do now is find my eye. I could grab my body, and I'm going to pack this back a little bit, so it's fairly tight. Bring all my hair back, and I've got some room for another little bunch, but we're going to put that in a minute or two here. Because what I like to do now to get these rubber legs on is I kind of split these apart a little bit where the thread is. And we're going to bury those legs right in that hair. And what I have is a small round rubber leg. I just have one piece long enough to do the job. I've already pre-measured it out. So I have a little bit of leg in the front, maybe a little more leg in the back. And just do a couple wraps like so. I want this in the middle of the body, so I'm going to adjust that right now and get it prepared. And then I take my second piece, and I'm going to bring it up in the back. Try to keep it about the same length. And then I'm just going to make a couple more wraps. Okay, so now I have my legs on, and I'm going to pack it one more time just to get everything moved back as far as I can. And I have a little space left in the front. So I repeat the process. I don't grab as much hair because I don't need it. I need just a little bit. I'm going to take the fluffy stuff out, square off the top, and square off the tips for my last little bunch. I'm going to bring everything back. Hold it back the best you can, and put this right tight in against where your thread is. Making sure you get behind the eye. You do the same spinning technique. Second time down and up, let it spin. Okay, I'm going to do one more pack. Okay, so I have the last piece of deer hair on. I packed it a little bit more so I could get some space right by the eye. I'm going to try to bring everything back, catch as few hairs as possible, a couple wraps around, and then whip finish it off. Okay, got my thread. take a little hair with it, doesn't matter, you're going to take it off anyway. And now, check my legs, they're doing pretty well overall. Now I'm going to take all this deer hair that I spun on and try to bring it forward a little bit so it's out of the way. So one thing I don't want to do is cut my legs or cut the top part that we put on first for the little overwing. So I'm going to separate that best I can for now. Okay, now the fun part comes. From here on out, the main thing to keep in mind is where are my rubber legs before you snip? Because you'll cry if you snip your rubber legs off. Trust me, I've done that many times. And I don't try to take it all at once. I'm just going to take what I think I can work with and rough it in. Keeping the legs out of the way. And this bottom part before you're done, we're going to want that flat. Like we did with the Madam X, if you remember that. And then in the front, I try to cut it at a little bit of an angle so it'll maybe blend in with that before we're done with the hair that's on for the wing on the back. Okay, it's starting to take shape. What I'm going to do with this is just keep going. Make sure your bottom's fairly flat. There we have my version of a Turk's Tarantula.